Hello, Tech Pros, episode 121.
Use your calendar as a way to be honest with your time management, where your time is going, but also use your calendar to block out your major priorities.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started.
Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Trigg Watson. Happy Tuesday, Trigg.
Happy Tuesday to you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Are you ready and prepared to be productive?
I am ready to go.
Awesome. Trigg Watson is an award-winning magician, illusion designer, and past Deloitte technology consultant. Trigg has entertained audiences from London to Las Vegas. He has won several awards for his magic and has appeared on television shows, including Pop TV's Don't Blink, Penn and Teller's Fool Us, and Masters of Illusion on the CW. Trigg has a passion for combining the latest technology with classic illusions to create experiences of the impossible that have to be seen to be believed. Dude, what an amazing lifestyle and occupation you have there. What made you switch from a Deloitte technology consultant into traveling magician?
Well, it's truly proof that your career at Deloitte can take you anywhere. That's what I tell people. But, the truth is, it was a little bit more of a gradual transition than I guess the bio makes it out to seem. I've loved magic ever since I was a kid. I saw my first magician when I was about 4 years old at a birthday party, just a friend's birthday party. And from then on, I started going to the library, getting magic books, and began performing for little kids' birthday parties and, just at a local neighborhood gigs. And it's stuck with me, all through college, all through, day job. It's always been with me as sort of my outside passion. About a year and a half ago, I was finally able to throw myself into it full time and loving every minute of it.
Nice. So what did you do at Deloitte besides wish to be a magician full time? What did you do in the technology world?
Yeah, so I was, as you said, a technology consultant, which could truly mean anything.
Right.
In this case, for me, it meant that I was working with corporate clients, both from everything from startups to larger, Fortune 500 clients that were looking to update or improve some technology platform. I mostly worked within the sort of front office sales marketing software realm. In the cloud. I was trained in Salesforce.
Right.
So a lot of what I was doing as an analyst and then consultant was helping define needs and requirements for the configuration of these cloud software platforms. I was not a coder myself, but I was more on the business side, developing what the needs and requirements and wishes were of the client to then go implement.
Okay, sounds like a business analyst role.
Exactly. Yep. And as I moved up to a consultant, it was still very analyst oriented. Though I was obviously doing a little bit more management of other groups and had sort of more threads that I was leading. I focused on sales marketing and Salesforce specifically because I knew that that was going to be one of the most helpful skills and I guess specialties to have as I started my own business or threw myself into my magic performing business more, because I knew that I would need a good CRM, customer relationship management, solution. I wanted to have something that I could use to manage my own clients, and I figured that was a synergy. So, like a good consultant, I tried to make sure that I was maximizing my skill set. Having some skills that would transfer over to being a full time working for myself.
Well, honestly, sometimes I see entertainment just as pure entertainment, because I'm having so much fun that I forget sometimes that I'm a customer, right? And I'm paying to witness the show, whether it's sports or whether it's magic or whether it's something else. And that's the beauty of entertainment, is you can get lost in it and you kind of forget that you're a customer. And so because I forget I'm a customer, I forget that the other end is a business transaction, right? That the entertainer is not just an entertainer, but they're an entrepreneur. They're a business owner, and that they are putting a service together, which is providing entertainment, and in your case, magic, right? Magic shows to blow my mind, but that you actually need a lot of the same technology and processes and services that every other business owner needs.
It's true. Absolutely. The added challenge, I guess, especially as a solo performer, is that I am my own product. And that comes with a certain degree of challenge because scaling is a little harder. I don't have a bunch of widgets that I can just increase production on, as needed as the demand increases or decreases. I am my own product. I am needed in the room for every service I sell, which is performances in different capacities, whether I'm on stage or, at a conference. So as a result, I have to be very careful with my time, making sure that I'm leaving enough time to be running the business end of show business, because business is the longer word than show, but also making myself, available for the creative side of things. So, it's a delicate balance for sure.
Sounds a lot like being a podcast host, right? Because there's this balance between working for your business and working on your business. So as the host of Hello Tech Pros, I'm working for the business like every single day, 7 days a week. I'm recording an episode, trying to get it produced and all that kind of stuff. But then on the business side of trying to sell sponsorships and trying to figure out what informational products I'm going to build or what joint venture partnerships I'm going to create, that's working on the business. And it's a tough balance, regardless, I guess, if you're a magician or a podcast host, to do both at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah, the content is different, but the form is pretty similar. I think some artists, some, colleagues of mine that are also, performing artists, they don't like, having to deal with the business side. They would much rather, hide in the theater and, develop, new content and, leave, the booking process and the business side to their manager or their agent. And for me, I've always enjoyed that balance. I mean, even though it can get frustrating and challenging at times, a part of why I enjoy working for myself as a performer is that I do get hop back and forth. My brain gets to sort of turn on different sides of myself. Every day. From hour to hour, I'm having to switch from creative brain to business brain, and I kind of like that challenge.
Interesting. Well, maybe we can dive into some of the details throughout this episode. But Trigg, as you know, today is Productivity Tuesday on Hello Tech Pros, and it's all about being that pace setter, the get it done, being extremely efficient with what we're doing. And you were actually referred to me by a previous guest on the show. So on Hello Tech Pros episode 58, so you can go to hellotechpros.com/58. The title of the episode is Get Perfect Memory and Always Know What to Do Next. And that was with the guest Christian Jenko. And he talked about this incredible productivity system that he has and how he is incredibly productive with his time. But then at the end of every episode, I always ask the guest, after the recording, like, hey, who would make an awesome guest on the show? So kind of expand my network and get a more diverse audience. And he said, oh my gosh, you have to talk to Trigg. He is way more productive than I am. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you shared so much incredibly amazing tips with me that audience, if you haven't checked it out already, go to episode 58 with Christian Jenko, Get Perfect Memory and Always Know What to Do Next. But now we're going to top it. We're going to level it up. According to Christian, talking to Trigg is the best way to increase your productivity. So what specific, do you know specifically what he was talking about? Like, do you have like a certain science or method to your madness when you're performing or on your business that makes you uber productive?
Well, first of all, let me say, I'm not sure, after listening to the podcast, Christian's podcast, which was terrific, and I certainly encourage anyone else to listen to it, I'm not sure if I truly am more productive than Christian, so I'm flattered for him to say that. I think him recommending me, first of all, came probably from his memory of me in college, which was me flying around I was a member of every single club or organization, double majoring in both business and theater, getting home from rehearsal at midnight and then starting my homework, after that, and then waking up the next morning and starting it all over again. So he kind of saw this whirling dervish of a crazy nerd running around campus. Didn't have a whole lot of time for a social life or anything else, which I think was partially not really managing my priorities very well. Obviously, focusing on doing well academically is important, and but I look back at my life in college and realize that in some ways I was not productive in the areas that I feel like make a difference in our well-being. But from the outside, it certainly looked like I was, accomplishing a million things. So Christian and I went to college. We were at the small liberal arts university in Dallas, and he's certainly a great friend. All that said, yeah, I do have a bit of my own system, and I certainly, in many ways, I think I can mirror my system based on in many ways on what Christian shared. I've kind of developed my productivity method and task management approach sort of organically, just from my own experience and wanting to create something that works well for me. Christian, by the sounds of it, had gone through a little bit more academically and realized he was in a place where he was not being as productive as he wanted to be, and really became a student of task management, and really looked at those the leaders in that area and kind of developed a system academically. So I certainly admire that, and again, I'd love to emphasize that I think he's a great place to start. What I would like to share today are the tools and system that I've kind of grown myself, and sort of mostly focused on managing time and then the tasks that I assign for myself on a daily basis, and making sure that they are aligned with the priorities that I'm setting for myself from a big picture standpoint.
Well, Trigg, first of all, I want to call out and applaud you and thank you for calling out that it's all about your personal priorities, right? Because a lot of times when we talk about productivity in business, it's more of the efficiencies of how can I compress 10 hours of work into an 8-hour workday.
Sure.
And that's important in some areas, but in other areas, it's really about the prioritization of your life. And that's why I have every Sunday, I have a Sunday episode called Being Unplugged, which is about work-life balance. And it's about spending time with my family and my friends and my hobbies and my health and all the things that have nothing to do with work. But still, I feel that day or just that process of getting unplugged and getting away from work every now and then can help me really, really tie back into the priorities that I have in my life, which work is just one little part. And then once I get that clarity, once I get kind of retouch every day or at least once a week on what those priorities are, then it makes me a much more productive person throughout the work week, because I know what my goal is, right? I know what my priorities are, and I know why I'm doing this stuff. So tell me a little bit about your productivity system and your priorities.
Sure. So I really focus on making sure that I'm capturing everything in a way that it will be looked at a later date. I think that's critical. So throughout the hour to hour every day, all of us naturally think of things that we need to accomplish, and so often it gets written on our hand or a sticky note and then disappears. So there's the stress develops from not remembering that there's what we should be doing, and we feel like, oh man, there's something we should be doing right now, but I don't remember what it is, and as a result, we suddenly are tense and nervous about what we haven't accomplished. I've become so much more relaxed now that I've made a practice of making sure that I'm writing everything down and really capturing it for a later date. I use, in terms of tools that I use, most of my task management takes place in an application, a third-party application called Things, Things. And I'm not sure if it's been mentioned by other podcast guests that you've had at all. It's by a company called Cultured Code. That's Cultured, Cultured, Code, Code. And I swear by this app. I run it on my iPhone, my computer, and my iPad, and it allows me to sync my task management wherever I am on whatever device is convenient.
Yeah, I think we've had one other guest, I can't remember who it was, but just briefly mentioned it in a long string of tools. Is like Things and Evernote and this and that and the other, and we just kind of touched on it. But sure. I haven't actually used it. So maybe you could dive down into what are the highlights of Things? Why do you love it so much? And what value does it give you?
Sure. So things is sort of one of three. I would say, just using my email inbox as a capturing device is something I also use, as well as my calendar. I have a Mac, so I use iCal. But any digital calendar, for me is also a critical component. But let me share a little bit more about things. Things basically is a smart way of managing tasks that come into your life. It's a very simple application, but what I've essentially done is created what they call areas of responsibility. So I have about 10 to 11 areas of responsibility in my life that I can clump my tasks into. And for me, running my business, I have bookings administration, general admin, show preparation, effect development, which is me developing new illusions, new material for my show, networking, press publicity. I basically identified the areas of my business that certain tasks could fall under. And I also have some areas of responsibility that are associated with my personal life. So even books to read, social life, things that I'd like to do in the future. So I've got those sort of long-term areas of responsibility that exist, long-term from day to day. And then I also have some areas that are simply active projects that are associated with shorter-term deadlines. Maybe an upcoming performance or a conference that I've booked to perform for that has certain tasks associated with it to be properly prepared for that upcoming performance. So those are sort of the big buckets. And then it's only a matter of dropping tasks into those buckets. The beauty of things is that you can add a due date to any task that you drop into these different areas. So as a result, on a day-to-day basis, you're only seeing what needs to be in your consciousness on that specific day. So there's probably hundreds of things that need to take place or that I've captured that need to occur, that I need to get done. But I may only be seeing 20 to 30 things that I should maybe be focusing on today or this week. And things allows you to kind of remove that visual clutter and focus on the things that needs to happen. So that's an important component. The other benefit of things is like a good database system, you can tag each task with any attributes you like. And this is really useful from a grouping based on task format. So if I have a bunch of phone calls, I might need to call, in any given work week across several different areas of responsibility. There may be several phone calls I need to make. I may need to make a phone call to my mother to wish her a happy birthday, on next Wednesday, but I also might need to make a call to a client. And there's efficiency that can be reaped from making sure you do all your phone calls at once. If I'm maybe driving and I know that, okay, I've got an hour drive, I can knock out all my phone calls. So what I can do is I can click on the phone calls tag and see, okay, here's the list of 5 phone calls that I need to make today across different areas of responsibility that I've assigned. So that's a sort of high level summary of, I think, what the important components are of things. And I know there are other task management systems that probably have similar mindsets and formats, but I've found it to be the simplest to use. I think it's important to note as well that things it does not have a calendar in it at all, and I think that's critical because the minute you start putting capturing the things you need to do on a day-to-day calendar, you lose track of them because you may not have finished a certain task on a certain day, and then you move on to the next day, and that task is essentially stuck in the past, undone or uncompleted. So I really like that things focuses just on the tasks that need to be completed, and it has nothing to do with the calendar, that I set for myself.
Interesting. So you said that. Let me see that I got this. So you want to put all of your major items, your major goals, your major responsibilities, both the long-term deadlines and the short-term deadlines, like the long-term meaning, okay, your career, your social life, your relationships, like the big directional things that you want to accomplish in life. You're going to put those on there as well as the shorter deadlines, right? So active projects, publishing my next act or going to a conference or whatever that short-term deadline is that has like a fixed date that's going to be done by, a month from now or a week from now or whatever it is. You're going to put all that stuff into this tool called Things, and then you're going to add a due date. Okay, but what I got confused on is you're going to add a due date to each thing so that it tells you what to focus on each day, but it's not a calendar format. So you're not actually scheduling things and saying, okay, at 3:00 I'm going to call Trigg, or I'm going to call Grandma and wish her a happy birthday. But it's, I don't know. Tell us exactly how
Understood.
you're
Yes,
assigning dates, but it's not showing up on a calendar.
Right. Okay. Yes, I can see why that would be confusing. So first clarification I should make is that these areas of responsibilities are not goals. They're really categories of work. They're categories or clumps of types of tasks. So bookings administration has nothing to do with a big goal. It just contains maybe some of the tasks are goals of things I want to complete. Maybe I want to upgrade my email newsletter. That might fall under the general admin bucket. And that might be a goal that I set for myself, that I want to complete my email newsletter upgrade, within 2 months, and I would set myself that goal. But those areas of responsibilities really are, just categories. To answer your question about the calendar, what I mean is that, in a traditional planner or calendar, you would write out, okay, here are the tasks and the meetings that have to take place today. And you'd look at your Monday, and you would say, all right, I'm just going to go through and accomplish what I've assigned for myself today. And once Tuesday rolls around, if there's anything that you didn't complete, those tasks were stuck on Monday, and you would have to rewrite them, right, and put them back into Tuesday because you didn't complete.
Got it.
So the benefit of Things is that these tasks, while yes, I've set a due date for many of them, they don't disappear when the next day rolls around, right? So I guess it is true that there is a calendar component in that I still have due dates, and I can mark when I want something to pop into my my task screen on a certain day. But I'm not living in a calendar interface. I'm living in an organized list interface, and my calendar is a separate, very important but separate component of my productivity system.
Okay, got it. So you're treating calendar as a point in time. This particular event has to happen at this particular time because of XYZ, because there's a dependency on, okay, Chad and Trigg have this podcast recording and it's going to be at this date and time, right? That's different. That's completely different than goals or tasks that can be done at any point in time, but they have like a due date or a focus time date of, we need to get it done this week. So Monday it's on there, Tuesday it's on there, Wednesday it's on there, and it's going to stay on that list until you get it done. Whereas if we for whatever reason missed this, let's say we had bad Wi-Fi connection during this interview and we had to reschedule, but we didn't actually get that date locked down on the calendar to reschedule, then we would just kind of be hosed, and it would be off in Never Land where, Trigg would be thinking, gosh, when is Chad going to follow up with me? And I'm thinking, gosh, when is Trigg going to follow up with me, right? But instead, like on a calendar date, you have to physically move that or copy that or create a new instance of that date over to a new time on the calendar, as opposed to in this list, when you're using Things, it's just like from the software development world, I think of like a Kanban board. If you've ever seen like the Toyota manufacturing process, right, where you have these tasks and you can only work on one or two at a time, and they're in the state of need to be done or in progress or done, and so they're just going to stay in that state of need to be done until you get them off, and then you can move them off your plate, and then you can be done.
Yes, and that's a great analogy. It's very similar to a Kanban board. So I guess this is a good time to now bring in the calendar component, because I'm not saying that we should live without a calendar. In fact, I'm more obsessive about a calendar than I think a lot of people are, maybe to an unhealthy standpoint.
Okay, so hold that thought. Hold that thought for just a minute, because we're at a great breaking point here in between this transition to calendar. So let's get to your calendar and dive down into when specifically are you going to use your calendar, and why are you so passionate about having an awesome calendar productivity system. But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage.
Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io.
Okay, we're back with Trigg Watson, award-winning magician, illusion designer, and past Deloitte technology consultant. And Trigg has come up with his own organic style of building his own productivity system, which includes, his inbox in his email, the application called Things, which is a smart way to take responsibility of all the major things in your life that you want to accomplish. And we've been talking to Trigg about, how you structure things and tag things and put metadata on things in the application called Things. It's kind of pretty meta here in this.
A lot of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on here. But before we left, Trigg, before we left on break, you were talking about, okay, there's a difference between, having this kind of Kanban relationship with your list of things that you have to do that don't have a particular date of when you're going to do it. It's just like floating. Here's all the things I need to get done this week, and they're going to stay in my to-do list until I cross them off, until I get them done. And so right before we went on break, you said, okay, and then I'm going to talk about calendar, because calendar is super, super important, and you have a magical way to handle your calendar. So tell us about that.
Sure. So, yeah, absolutely. I use a calendar in not for just meetings and events that I'm obliged to show up to, which is, I think, mostly how people use a calendar. For me, a calendar is also a personal checkup to make sure that I'm putting my time and energy towards the major, priorities of my life, right? So this is going to sound obsessive, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for everybody to do on a day-to-day basis, year in, year out. But I literally accurately schedule everything, or record, schedule is the wrong term, record how I spent my time hour to hour on a 24-hour basis, day to day.
Wow.
So if I know this is a podcast, so I can't show you all an image, but if you picture a calendar that has 24 rows for each hour in the day, 7 days a week, I have got sleep, breakfast, admin, dinner, meetings, rehearsals, maybe administration tasks. Every minute of my time I have color-coded and denoted in my calendar. So I can look back. I've been doing this since my university days. I can look back and see exactly how I was spending my time at any given minute on any given day for the past few years, which is, in some ways, some people would see it as obsessive and, would be locking me into a completely scheduled life. But the truth is, it works partially as a scheduler for the future and also a recorder for the past. So, for example, this week we had our Hello Tech Pros interview scheduled. So I had you, as a meeting on this calendar. I've got a flight back to my cruise ship that I'm performing on tomorrow. So I've got that, scheduled in for tomorrow, so I don't miss my flight. I have a coffee catch up scheduled with another performer in Ketchikan, Alaska, where I'll be landing on Friday, and I've got that scheduled. Kind of like any typical calendar, I've got those meetings and events scheduled.
Okay.
But what I've also done, if I look back at my day yesterday, I have recorded that I spent 3 hours unpacking from my show on Friday, and I spent 2 hours in the morning rehearsing for a show that I had yesterday morning early. I also put in that I had to drive to Westlake, Texas, where I live in Dallas. I had to drive to Westlake for the show, and I've got that drive time noted in there. So I can look back at my day yesterday, and because I've got color coding, I can see how much time did I spend on rehearsing my act, How much time did I spend on, traveling? How much time did I spend on, spending time or working out? And for me, that's helpful to make sure that I am keeping my priorities in check. If I spent a whole day, watching Netflix and eating and not rehearsing at all, I could look back and I would see a day that's just full of pink boxes, these pink time durations that was just essentially social life and, quote unquote chilling, and not me being very productive. And that's sort of a visual reminder that, oh man, I need to make sure that I plan things better out, the following day.
So Trigg, how do you input this data? So I understand some of it is pre-scheduled, right? The meetings, the events, the flights, stuff like that, you're going to pre-schedule on your calendar. But the things that just come up organically throughout the day, like when you unpack your suitcase or when you lay on the couch and watch Netflix, how much of that is pre-scheduled versus how much of that is just data input after the fact?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so this is probably best to answer just from a future week. So I'm going to take, say I'm looking at, basically, I usually operate on a weekly basis to plan out, where am I going to put my time on any given week? So I am looking out on my week, next week, and I have certain things already on the calendar. And I probably have more than most. I mean, apart from, the coffee catch up and, a few phone calls scheduled, I already, looking at these 24-hour rows in my calendar, day to day, I have sleep scheduled. I want to make sure I get my 7 hours. That's how much I choose to, I like to get. So I have sleep already denoted in there. I also have workouts. I like to do, weightlifting 3 days a week and cardio the other days, and I've got an hour scheduled for all of those. So I also, at the moment, because I'm performing on a cruise ship, I'm working on my show, and the theater is available in the morning. So I've got my morning rehearsal scheduled from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the mornings, because that's when it's available. So I've got those blocked out. So what I'm looking at for my next week is a calendar that has major items that I want to do every day blocked out. But then there's also white space, which is essentially free time that I can choose to put towards whatever I think is important. So this is where things comes into play, right? So maybe, I need to unpack, or I'll need to take some time to unpack for my show and prepare for the next booking. I might choose to say, all right, that's going to take me about an hour and a half. I'm going to block out that white space with unpacking on, say, Monday. And I start filling in the white space with the things that I've already recorded into the Things app into my calendar. Now, obviously, there's going to be some white space, and naturally, if I go grab a beer with a friend on a Friday night, that won't be necessarily scheduled until the day of. But I will make a practice at the end of the day. At the end of that day, going back and recording the fact that I had that beer and hung out with that friend, simply because I'm someone that really enjoys looking back at how I spent my time. In some ways, it's sort of a diary of here's where I put my time this week. This is helpful to go back and look at, because I know, from a big picture standpoint, let's zoom out, there's priorities that we have in our life. And I've decided at the moment that my work as a magician is most important to me, and, I'm early growing my career. So that takes precedence. So I want to look back and I want to see more orange and red, which is rehearsal and performances, right, in my life, orange and red coded time. Then I want to see, sorry about the phone call. Then I want to see, green and pink, which is, maybe business-oriented activities. I want to focus on my material the most. So I could, the calendar is a visual checkup to make sure that I'm putting my time in the best way that aligns with my, my big picture priorities.
So what's the time cost investment to both do the scheduling, the detailed scheduling, to input all the things in the Things app, and then at the end of the day to do that catch up and to put all the spontaneous items or spontaneous activities onto the calendar?
Sure. I mean, it could be a concern that I can understand, and people have asked me this before. Wow, you put so much time into this, and the truth is, I really don't. At the end of the day, there might be 5 minutes that I put towards just saying, all right, how did I spend the day? Oh yeah, I remember doing this. I remember doing that. I write it down. I should mention that I don't think this is critical to I don't, I enjoy keeping track of how I spend my time, and it's sort of a diary. I like to track of where I put my time. I don't think that's necessary to do all your life, even though I do. I enjoy it. I do think, though, even just taking a month or 2 weeks to record how you've spent hour to hour forces you to be honest with yourself to where you are actually putting your time. If you say that you really want to work on, learning guitar because that's your passion, and in reality you spent more time watching movies, it's sort of a good, if you look back at your calendar and you're honest with yourself about really where did my time go, in some ways it forces you to act, it forces you to make a change with how you're putting your time. In terms of time investment, it's really not, for me, it's not that much. I might spend about an hour week to week, just, inputting my big ticket, tasks that I want to accomplish that week and putting them in my calendar. But I know that the hour that I put in, on that Sunday night is going to be, in the long run, less time and less stress than if I, just ran around trying to do everything that was on my list day to day. It's a short term, it's a shorter time investment that has, long-term gains over the course of the week.
And then when do you do like your retrospective? So when do you sit down and take a look at, man, over the last quarter, 6 months or 2 years, where have I been investing my time, and doing that analysis to kind of catch yourself and direct yourself and determine whether or not you're kind of on track on your goals or missing?
Sure. It's a good question. Most people, I imagine, or, a lot of people have salaried jobs and they work 9 to 5, and they have, maybe, they decided, both for their business and for their personal lives, maybe they decide to check in, every year or every quarter. They sort of have a calendar and a work life that is structured and allows them to just decide, all right, every 3 months, I'm going to look back how my performance was. For me, as a performer, and now that I am no longer in the corporate world, now that I am working for myself, I've found that I've had to become more flexible. I'm not working a 9 to 5. I probably, I might put in a 70-hour work week or a 100-hour work week, but I still was, walking my dog at mid-afternoon when most people are working, but then I was working till 11 p.m. last night in the theater. So I have a very flexible work schedule. So I find that my retrospectives tend to rotate around big ticket obligations that I have. So, for example, I'm just about to finish an 8-week contract on a cruise ship. I've been in the same place for the past, on the ship for the past 8 weeks, and I have the fall ahead of me. So that's going to be a natural stopping point and a natural time for me to reflect on, my past 8 weeks and thinking, okay, now that I'm back home, how am I going to put my time? Where am I going to put my focus, over the next few months, leading up to Christmas? Similarly, Christmas season or holiday season is very busy for me as a performer. Everyone and their brother wants someone to entertain them at their Christmas party. Mm-hmm. So December is generally very hectic, very booked for me. So chances are I'm going to choose January to look back, at my holiday season and plan for the next year, because January tends to be a little bit slower from a booking standpoint. So yeah, my retrospectives, my goal setting, my reflection time really, is based on an organic, performer schedule that really rotates around, when I'm busiest on stage.
Okay, so I know, first of all, thank you so much for sharing this. And at the beginning of the episode, you said that this wasn't just like an overnight switch where you change from the old Trigg to the new Trigg, and the new Trigg implements all these things, right? This is an organic process as you kind of layered on other steps and other activities and slowly implemented this. But now that you have it implemented, like, what is the overall benefit? So we've talked about the cost of what it takes to invest. So what's the outcome? What does it feel to have all of this on the calendar and be able to look at it? Or what is the direct result in your business bottom line after implementing all of these processes to stay on top of your productivity?
Sure. I think the number one benefit is peace of mind and freedom. I am not as stressed. I look forward to every day. It's a game that I play with myself of, what am I going to accomplish? What's the most important? It's genuinely fun. I really, I feel free from, my mind is free to really address what I feel like I need to focus on. And that peace comes from the fact that I don't have to keep it all in my head. Mm-hmm. it's external of me. You know, the burden of all the things I want to accomplish, and there are a lot of them, are no longer weighing me down. I get to have the simple focus of saying, okay, week to week, I have the time that I have. That's all I have. You know, I'm going to choose to make sure I'm spending my time the way I want to. And I really feel so much more free and peaceful. I think those are the best words to use than I did when it was all trying to be in my head. I mean, there was a time when I was, you know, I think in high school and college where I was so focused on, you know, all these things I wanted to do, but I didn't have any priorities or a calendar to really be honest with what I could feasibly accomplish. So as a result, I was just running around trying to cram more tasks into my day.
Yeah.
I was a bit of an adult high school student, if you can tell. I wasn't your typical typical high school student. So in some ways, I feel like I've gotten more relaxed and more peaceful as I've gotten better at managing my time. I think the other benefit, and this may sound counterintuitive, but this system allows me to be more spontaneous. And I know people are probably thinking, well, hold on. You've recorded every bit of your life. How on earth are you being more spontaneous? Well, the truth is that because I know I have a very keen sense of what I planned to accomplish in any given week, and I know exactly where I plan to put my time, I now know what the ramifications are if I choose to divert from that schedule. So if I'm in the middle of rehearsing, a 5-hour rehearsal block, and a friend just texts me and say, hey, I'm at the airport, my flight is delayed, I haven't seen you in ages, do you want to catch up quickly for lunch? I can say, yes, absolutely, and know that it's my job to put those 2 hours of rehearsal that I'm losing to a different point in the week. And I can assess whether I do have time to do that, or whether I need to make the difficult decision to say, hey man, no, I've got this show coming up, I really can't move things around. It gives me the confidence to take spontaneous things as they happen, and manage the ramifications effectively.
Trigg, what I love about this is I have fought internal demons about this sort of tracking, not even this sort of tracking, but just even when I was working in corporate, right, and trying to justify to myself and justify to my employees the benefits of just using a timesheet and filling out the timesheet and letting everybody know what projects you're working on and how long you're working on them. Because once you can do the analysis of where you're spending your time, then you know what the cost of everything is. And if you know what the cost of everything is, then you can a lot easier make justifications to what you need to double down on and what you need to cut out of your life, right? There's a lot of things that we say, oh yeah, it's just a little hobby, it's just a little thing, I'm just watching a show or whatever. But if you had it on your calendar and you could look back and go, oh wow, like I thought my priority was working out and getting in shape, but I'm spending like 30 minutes a week doing that, but I'm spending 6 hours a week watching television. Obviously, I've got something that needs to be addressed, right? And so I love the fact that you called out how it gives you freedom, peace of mind and freedom. Your mind is free to focus on the important things because now you have prioritized it, you have looked at it, you have tracked it, and you know exactly where you're spending your time and what things are important, and you're kind of reinforcing the idea of what's important, right? So the more things that are important, the more time you're going to spend on it. When you see that you have spent that time on it, that reinforces to you that it is important. And I could see how this could very, very quickly turn something from an occasional thing into a habit, like a very good habit or very bad habit, or get rid of bad habits because you're like, hey, the data doesn't lie. Sorry, dude, the data doesn't lie. It's right here. You can check the facts, check the numbers. This is where you spend your time. And if you want family to be important, you need to spend more time with your kids, and you need to get it on the calendar, or you need to track, that you're doing that. And if your business is more important, then you need to be spending time on that. But I think so many times we have these conflicting priorities of all the things that we wish that we could get done, but we don't put a plan in place to actually get them done. So I love the fact that you actually have a plan that works for you to get it done, and then you're reflecting on it, and you're looking back upon it, and you're checking yourself. It's not like you have some big accountability group with all these mentors that are holding you accountable to your goals. You're holding yourself accountable because you have this system. That's what I got out of this call. Yeah, that's what I got out of this call.
Yeah,
so
I think
Sorry. What final words of wisdom do you have for our audience about what you would like for them to get out of this conversation?
Sure. So I think the big picture is use your calendar as a way to be honest with your time management, where your time is going, but also use your calendar to block out your major priorities. Make sure that you are spending your time week to week, making sure that your big picture goals are taking up the most time on your calendar, and use that task management system to kind of drop those tasks into those major time chunks. There's a quote that I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. There's a quote that I'm fond of by Jim Carrey. He mentioned it in a recent commencement speech that says, "The greatest currency is the effect we have on other people." And I truly believe that managing our time and where we put our attention more effectively gives us more moments to invest in our relationships and connecting with others. And I really think that's the best benefit you could ask for.
Awesome. Great stuff. Trigg, where can we find you online or get in touch with you as social media? Where can we get a hold of you?
Sure. So I am on everything: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, Periscope, everything you can imagine. Hashtag, or rather, handle at Trigg Watson. That's TriggWatson. You can also find me at my website, triggmagic.com. That's TriggMagic.com.
Well, Trigg, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value your story of your productivity system and your adventures of traveling all over the world and keeping track of minute by minute exactly what you're doing on your calendar, and how it's giving you the peace of mind to know that you can be spontaneous and still hit your goals by holding yourself accountable to the major responsibility things that you have in your life. So I appreciate you coming on the show, and thanks.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Chad.
You bet. Tech Pros, if it's important to you, then you need to make time to make sure that it's important to you, right? We talk about all the things, all the goals, all the productivity stuff that we want to do, and we don't make time for it. So I've got a little email list to help you be more productive. 100 days of productivity after I celebrated my 100th day of continuous podcast episodes. So if you go to this episode at hellotechpros.com /121, 121 days of podcasting so far, hellotechpros.com /121, you will get all the show notes for this particular episode with Trigg Watson, and all the tools and resources that he's talked about, including ways to connect with Trigg online and his website, as well as that email list that I talked about, that 100 days of productivity, where I can help you be accountable to your major goals and the things that you want to do. But the big point is that I got out of this is, if it's important, you need to invest time in it. And if you're investing time in it, then you need to track that time so that you can hold yourself accountable to that time. You've been listening to Trigg Watson, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com /121. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com /Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Productivity Tuesday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I are talking about leadership. Thursday, technology. Friday, people and communication. Saturday, entrepreneurship. Sunday, being unplugged. Monday, motivation. And then we do it all over again next Tuesday for productivity. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.